Welcome to Nature Calls, Conversations from the Hudson Valley. Our team's goal is to present science-based information about gardening and all things nature in New York's Hudson Valley. Our hosts are Master Gardener volunteers for the Cornell Cooperative Extension of Columbia and Greene counties, midpoint along the Hudson River Valley. So if you're interested in gardening or nature or just nuggets of information about what's happening outside your door, listen in and enjoy the conversation. Whatever the season, we'll always have something to talk about.
Hi, I'm Tim Kennelty.
And I'm Jean Thomas.
Welcome to Nature Calls, Conversations from the Hudson Valley. Today our guest is Joel DuBois, Executive Director at Greene County Soil and Water Conservation District and Board Member at Greene County Agricultural and Farmland Protection Board and Board Member at Greene County Land Trust. Wow, you're busy, Joel, right?
Yeah, most of those are other duties of my main job. So
we're going to be talking about soil and water mostly today.
yes, that's right.
I'm going to cite the Mountain Eagle newspaper for a second here because it has a great summary of the history of Greene County Soil and Water Conservation District. The reporter, Mike Ryan, says it's a county-level political subdivision which is dedicated to the management of natural resources, and that the agency's been in existence since 1961, which seems to me like 5 minutes ago. Founded in order to facilitate the implementation of a major federal flood control project in the town of Windham, establishing a network of flood control dams. And the article goes on to describe another function of the Soil and Water District. You help advance state-of-the-art watershed management projects and policies and programs. And that's a lot. And there's a couple of other things going on. Can you give us an overview of the Soil and Water District in a nutshell?
Yeah, sure. Like you said, it was founded in 1961 in order to effect a flood control project up in the town of Windham. There had been shortly before that a catastrophic hurricane and catastrophic flooding through the Batavia Kill. A number of flood control structures were built in the town, and the Soil and Water District was the initial inception of it was to facilitate that flood control project.
So is that different from other counties? Because I know there are other counties that have soil and water. So that's specific to Greene County, yes?
Yeah, so soil and water districts are authorized under a state law. Not every county has to have one. I kind of looked into how many counties do have them, and the state association says that no county in New York lacks a soil and water district, but on the other hand, there are 58 soil and water districts and 62 counties. So I don't know how to bridge that gap, but
Does that leave out the boroughs, maybe?
well, New York City has one, but they may be sort of combined into one, where maybe the 4 boroughs are counted independently.
That
in the
could be.
62 number,
Yeah.
but New York does have one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they all kind of focus on different things specific to the county that are the county's needs, correct? Is that right?
That's absolutely right. Yeah. And the structure of our soil and water districts are that we have a board of directors similar to a not-for-profit. They call us quasi-governmental because we are connected to the county. Our jurisdiction essentially is Greene County, the limits, with some exceptions that we can talk about. But of that 7-member board, 2 of the members are legislative members. They're from the Greene County legislature. And each soil and water district is made up of a board like that has practical farmers, at-large members, legislative members, farm bureau member. So, and in total 7.
Yeah, what could go wrong?
Right. It brings a diverse
Really, yeah.
It sounds
bunch
good.
together for sure, And each of the soil and water districts, via the direction of that board, take up the issues that are most pressing in their own counties.
And you work with Schoharie County on a lot of things because the mountaintop overlaps with all the water.
Yeah, and one of our big programs is our watershed management program. We contract with New York City Department of Environmental Protection and the Bureau of Water Supply for that. And in the interest of streamlining contracting efforts and so forth, there is a tributary to the Schoharie Basin, the Schoharie Reservoir, that comes from Schoharie County. So instead of having a whole separate contract with Schoharie County, we service that portion of Schoharie County for the stream program.
So what is a watershed? Can you kind of define what a watershed is? Because I know we have them all over the state and they're really important.
Yeah. So watersheds are the land mass that drains, if a drop of rain should fall on it, it drains to whatever your point of interest is. So there are all different, you can delineate a watershed basically from anywhere. Any spot on the ground, you can say, what's the watershed to here? Generally, there's some kind of infrastructure asset or something that makes that a spot of interest.
So going to a reservoir or something.
Yeah. So for our programming with the city, it's the Schoharie Reservoir and everything that drains to that, the entire landmass that drains to that design point, more or less, point of interest. So like I say, any culvert, for instance, you might be doing a culvert restoration and you would delineate the watershed that drains there, the land mass that any water that lands on it would drain to that culvert.
So that's a really important piece of land then, right? In terms of water supply, in this case to the city, but also to other areas, right?
Yeah. So this particular watershed, the Schoharie Reservoir watershed, is part of the west of Hudson drinking watershed for New York City. All that water gets tunneled under the Hudson River to their east of Hudson reservoirs. And 9 million people get their drinking water unfiltered. It's the largest unfiltered water supply in the United States.
So it's really important to protect that then. How do you protect that watershed?
So a big part of the programming is we sort of hit the ground with a initial remote sensing. We do GIS, Geographic Information System mapping, to determine what is that watershed, what are the areas we have to look at, from aerial photos, remote mapping, like Geographic Information System layers that we can layer on top of the photography and whatnot. Then next move is to go out and actually walk the main stems, at least, and in our case, several of the tributaries inside that watershed. And we find any areas of water quality impairment, mostly coming from contact with unfavorable geologic deposits like glacial lake clay that underlie that entire Schoharie Basin.
So you have a staff of hundreds, right?
About 13, if we're fully staffed up, maybe 14 and a half.
It's a vast
folks.
area.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a big area. Boy, I don't know the square mileage right off the top of my head. But for instance, the one project we're working on right now on the Batavia Kill has a 64 square mile drainage area just to that one project on one tributary to the Schoharie Basin. So
Now, these tributaries are all kills?
for the most part, we've got the Batavia Kill, West Kill, East Kill. Schoharie doesn't have a kill.
No Schoharie kill.
Yeah, no Schoharie kill. But yeah, most of them have that kill moniker at the end, Dutch for stream, from what I understand.
Yeah. So you're responsible for maintaining the health of all of those.
Yeah.
Oversimplify.
Yeah. So the contract with the Bureau of Water Supply is really focused on turbidity reduction. Turbidity is the top threat to water quality in the New York City west of Hudson Basin.
What does that mean, turbidity?
So turbidity is the cloudiness of the water, muddy water, basically. And as I mentioned, the water supply is unfiltered to the city. The only treatment it gets is UV treatment. So it flows in a shallow sheet under a UV light. And if there are tiny particles that make up that turbidity, a pathogen could hide in the shadow of that particle, basically. So that's why it's critical that the turbidity levels be minimized as much as possible. Obviously, there are times when turbidity happens during flood events and whatnot like that. And in the east of Hudson reservoir system, if turbid water is received down there, they have to use what they call flocculants, that are a chemical substance to glob together the small particles and make them fall out of.
I like that word.
Yeah, fall out of suspension. But regulators don't
Our side of the river
introduce
doesn't have
those
that.
chemicals and so forth. So
Wow.
so for
But there's no treatment. That's really fascinating to me.
just the UV treatment, no filtration, and
So unique.
I know.
yeah, it is unique, and it's made possible by a filtration avoidance determination that the city renews periodically with the EPA and regulated by the Department of Health and the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. But they do a lot of work in order to make the best use of ecological services to achieve that water quality standard rather than installing a very costly filtration plant.
Is there something special about the land that you don't have to really filter it? I mean, is this on the west side of the river? Is there something geologically or something that is completely special? Because it sounds kind of really unique.
Well, one of the big parts is that these are 90+% forested watersheds. So, that's the ecological services, is having as much of this landscape forested as possible. And then where there are market supplies of these turbidity particles, we try and identify those and design treatments for them to minimize contact with, like I say, that glacial lake clay is sort of a main suspect.
And what do you do with that glacier? I mean, when you said that, I thought, like, what happens when that kind of interferes with the turbidity of the water?
Yeah, so we look at a bunch of different treatment options. We'll usually evaluate a number of different alternatives for the project. And in a lot of cases, it's moving the river off of that source. Where it can't be moved off of it, we will actually go in and excavate out that
Wow.
material and replace it with clean, stable material. These glacial lake clays lie in the bed, usually lower than where these streams flow. They've been covered over by gravel, boulder, alluvium, but where they have cut down back into those clay deposits or cut laterally into mountainsides that contain clay that's been pushed up by glacial activity, for instance, those are the areas we try and identify and go out and treat. We intervene in those.
A lot of times that's the result of flooding.
It can be flooding. It can be just long-term, relatively normal channel migration. These channels tend to migrate over time.
Yeah.
There's a rate that is sort of tolerable. Where we find those rates are being exceeded, that's where we may consider an intervention. And especially where there's down cutting, where the channel is cutting down into the landscape. That's a really, really important problem, sort of a multi-phase problem.
So you said the forests are really important in terms of, do they clean the water, or how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, in a number of ways. For one, the root network that underpins these trees really helps to stabilize the soil. There's a root matrix in there that without that root matrix, these particles are essentially unbound and just flow away easily mobilized by the river. We refer to something called boundary resistance, which is basically a combination of what's the size of particles the channel is made up of, and then how are those particles bound together by vegetative material.
So are we worried about climate change kind of killing off those forests and then not having clean drinking water? Is that an issue that I could start worrying about in the middle of the night?
Yeah, it's definitely an issue. And I mean, just recently we've seen the emergence of the emerald ash borer, and basically every ash tree on our landscape has died in the past 4 or 5 years.
And has that had an impact upon the water quality at all? I mean, do you know?
It's difficult to say there's a measurable impact there, but it certainly leaves a void where those trees were holding soil together. It's a vast network of different plants, so generally that new sunshine that comes in beneath a ash that has succumbed, it grows into a jungle underneath there. So it's one type of plant coming in to replace the next, but you never know which way climate change is going to take this.
And you can't measure it
No.
in short time
Right.
period. So you
Right.
don't know.
That's right.
So this is kind of mind-blowing to me. Is all that land protected then? I mean, somebody, I guess, can't build a house on that land then, or a big Walmart or something. Is that right?
Well, there, as you know, are homes, stores, parking lots in the watershed, in the New York City drinking watershed. They do try and purchase and protect land. Also, the New York State DEC has a great deal of property that they own in the New York City watershed, but it is an issue. There actually was just a recent article in the Porcupine Soup that they've essentially achieved the overall bulk of the land that they think they need to protect. And now they're moving on from the big land acquisition program where they're buying, thousands and thousands, I think over 100,000 acres so far, and to smaller parcels with a streamside acquisition program where they are buying more targeted parcels that are more connected to the resource.
It's all about connectivity, right? So if you have little parcels that connect to each other, you're kind of doing the job that a big parcel would do, right?
Yeah, and trying to find those really critical areas, for instance, along the river restoration projects that we've done. That's sort of a acquisition type that I've been advocating for. We generally do these projects under a landowner license that has a term to it, a certain number of years. And as those terms run out, theoretically, these are unprotected at that point. So if we can use that streamside acquisition program to extend the period that those areas are
So
protected.
you're filling in the gaps.
Yeah, fill in the gaps and, joining small little scraps of parcels into a protection project that, as you put all those scraps together, it's sizable.
Okay, I got a couple questions.
Sure.
The city's paying property tax
Yep.
on this.
Yep.
So that sort of saves the economy of the people that are still living there.
Yes.
And who's protecting it? I mean, you've got tens of thousands of acres and people that want to like sneak in there with their machinery and harvest the crops of ginseng and things like that. Is that a DEC protection thing? It's got to be in New York.
Well, yeah, so New York City owns them. They have a police force actually in the watershed that goes around and patrols things, mostly near the reservoirs, but they do get out into the lands out away from the reservoir that they own. And each of those parcels has a conservation easement that's granted from the city to New York State DEC. So they also oversee to make sure that all the circumstances that are laid out in that conservation easement are being upheld.
Yeah, because I can see human nature being what it is, all kinds of outlaws wanting to get in there. Seriously.
Yeah.
Well, we don't give anybody any ideas.
No, they come up with them on their own. They don't need me.
So you talked about restoration along some of the riverbanks. So tell us about that. So it's important to kind of make sure that those forests are there. I mean, do you plant trees or like trees for tribs kinds of things and like that?
Yeah, we have a program called the Catskill Stream Buffer Initiative. And that program is targeted at just planting. So we'll identify areas like fallow farm fields, for instance, that haven't been in production for a while and don't really need to be cleared or kept that short grass or that kind of thing. And we'll approach the property owner, ask if they're interested in a planting along the stream. We'll generally do up to 300 feet away from the stream. And we plant those areas with native trees and shrubs and seed mixes, and at no cost to the landowner. The landowner's contribution is the agreement to let us go in there and do the planting and agree to not mow it, disturb it, etc.
You just did a big fat planting recently. I saw a posting on Facebook with wonderful music in the background, by the way. And it showed people you grow them at Maple Crest?
Yes, we have a plant material center in Maple Crest, Windham.
Okay.
And we essentially the same plants that we get for our bare root tree sale. We also buy several thousand of them, and we put them in pots ourselves to be grown out to a
It looked
certain
like
extent.
a bunch of sycamores.
Yeah, we do a lot of sycamores.
See,
Yep.
I could spot a sycamore at 30 pounds.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah. Sycamores are one of my favorites. Just
Yeah.
root strength that is off the chart compared to other riparian.
And great for along the riverbanks.
Yes, they love being near the river, and like I say, that root strength, even compared to other things you see typically growing along the river, is just a standout with sycamore. So
What's riparian?
that's along the river areas.
Okay.
And you're planting natives. Does that mean that invasive species are a danger to the watershed? Or do they do just as well as far as their roots and in terms of holding on to the soil? Or are
It
they
can
different?
vary. It really can vary. We try and use natives because they're the most adapted to this climate. As climate changes, hard to say. But for instance, one of the natives that is especially problematic, invasive, especially problematic for us, is Japanese knotweed. And, that grows all along the riparian corridors. It's really likes to be near water and does not have a great root system in terms of binding soil. It has sort of rhizomatous roots.
Which is why it travels so well.
Yes, and any little broken off piece of that root that gets entrained in a flood can deposit on a floodplain, and it can grow from just little tiny fragments of root.
So what do you do about that? I mean, is there any way to combat that? Because we've seen them certainly along streams and riverbeds and things like that. Is there a program to combat that?
So without starting at the head of the watershed, like we just said, it gets transported. You could not really start in the middle of a watershed and try and eradicate
Right.
because it'll constantly be reinoculated with that material. So, from the top of the watershed down approach would be necessary. We aren't there yet. Generally, what we're trying to achieve is we try and hold back these invasives long enough for our native plants to get established and grow so that they're taller than the knotweed. That's, maybe a 5-year period. We try and keep it under control. And then after that, it's kind of, we move on to the next area and hope for the best.
So I assume you have like maps and things like that of where they are.
Yeah, well, almost anywhere you could throw a dart on a map in the scary watershed,
Easy.
you find knotweed. But we do have a schedule where any of these plantings that we do, we try and control the knotweed before we do the planting, and then we try and hold it at bay for about 5 years.
Okay, there's a part of your job in the other 10% of your spare time. What is this agriculture program about?
Yeah, so it's an agricultural program that comes out of the New York State Ag and Markets, and we had a agricultural program until about 2008 or so, and then it's kind of fallen off. And recently, we had a technician who operates the Jonk Farm in Greenville, and he was interested in getting the program spooled back up. A lot of the bigger farms that are around had been involved in the program before 2008, but there are so many small farms now starting to spring up that we thought there'd be a lot of new interest in the program.
So it had been a soil and water program and
Prior to
faded out.
2008.
How did it get added into soil and water?
Well, our authorization is through Ag and Markets. The Soil and Water Conservation Committee is sort of a state level
Okay, so then they
conservation
sort of
committee.
tacked it on.
And they said, hey, yeah, we think that the soil and water districts would be the right place to deliver this programming.
You were the last man standing and you couldn't get away from.
Right. We probably weren't at a meeting.
Yeah, that's right.
No, it's really a great program, though, and targeted at mostly water quality impairment reduction as well.
Yeah, I can
So-
see where the feed is. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense.
We do things like fencing to keep animals from, walking right into the rivers and things like that.
Mhm.
We do watering facilities so that they have water that's away from the stream. We do manure management systems and infrastructure. So it's a great partnership between the Soil and Water District and these agricultural operators in that, they may not individually be that concerned about water quality, but they would like to have a nice, easy to clean barnyard. So they get that infrastructure improvement. We get the water quality.
Well, they have to be concerned with water quality as well because they got livestock to water.
Yeah,
And
they
that's
are.
no longer something you can be casual about.
Right.
Okay, now my favorite thing that soil and water does.
I know what you're going to say.
Go ahead, say it.
The plant sale, right? The bare root plant sale.
Yeah. So that's one of our favorites. We do every year. It's the community really seems to embrace it. We order plants around this time of year. These are bare root plants that come usually bundled up in tens and no soil on them. So people actually will show up with like a truck and trailer. Will I be able to get my 40 trees onto the truck and trailer? And we come out with like a grocery bag. And no, they're right in here.
Yeah, we got you.
So it's a surprise, but they're easy to transport, easy to plant. You'd be surprised how much easier a plant with no soil on the roots is to plant. You can almost just make a cut in the ground and put them in there.
And most of the counties have this, right?
Yeah, it's a pretty popular program amongst the soil and water districts, and I wouldn't be able to put a finger on a single one that doesn't have it.
But different offerings, it seems like, because to be really
Shopping for each county.
like,
Well, I do the shopping. I get a catalog and I go ahead and put in our order. So yeah, if there are any specific requests,
You'll be
we
hearing.
do take requests. We do try and keep it native as well.
Well, we've been known among the three of us to shop 3 different counties.
yeah, right.
Which is a scampering around in the state
Because they all offer different species, really.
really different companies.
And it's kind of interesting that, do you think Greene County, when you choose them, are you choosing specifically for Greene County, things you think, or just things that you think are going to be good for, water retention and things like that?
I pick the stuff that I think will be popular with people. I do mirror a lot of the species that we use in river restoration because they are so resilient around here. But, we do get off into some other areas. I ordered Leotris spicata this year, which is sort of a taste plant, So that's maybe a little more aesthetic than it is conservation, but I like it.
Yeah.
And the compost, right? Bags of compost.
Right. We sell compost. We sell fertilizer tabs that are slow release,
Yep.
long-term
And
fertilizer.
tree guards, right? Do you sell tree guards as well?
Tree tubes,
Tree tubes,
stakes. Yep. The deer predation on the trees is tough around here. So the tree tubes really help it get above that deer browse height pretty quickly and prevents damage. What else do we sell? I think that we've pretty much covered it all with sale.
And is it all natives?
Yeah, I keep it all natives.
Yeah.
Yep.
Are there other options on your catalog that you shop from?
Yes, there are.
Really?
It's a wholesaler, so it's hard to just have an individual shot from it.
And who's your source? It's a state source, isn't it?
Well, no, we get it from we shop with Meadowview.
Oh, okay.
Meadowview Nursery. They're out in the sort of Finger Lakes area.
You shop their regular catalog? I'm making notes, Tim.
Which
I don't know that they even have a regular catalog, to be honest. They are pretty much
wholesale.
geared up just for these tree sales. I think pretty much everyone does their tree sales through Meadowview.
No, I thought they came from the state. There was some big state.
Yeah,
Well, they're a state
River.
nursery in Saratoga.
You can buy from them.
that's the
So-
mostly the evergreens and baby
Yeah.
trees. Yeah.
Yeah, and as part of our sale, actually, we offer a pickup service. So for $7, while we're up there picking up our orders and stuff, we will pick up, the order that you ordered and bring it to our tree pickup. So
Yeah.
But we get trees for our plant material center from the Saratoga Nursery, as well as from Meadowview and a number of others.
And for our listeners, when is that list available? And you can get put on a mailing list, right?
Yeah, you can go to our website at GCSWCD.com. That's for Greene County Soil Water Conservation District.com, not .org or .gov.
Oh, you're calm.
Yeah, we're a comp.
Yeah.
And you can get put on the mailing list. You'll get our newsletter. You'll get notification when our plant sale catalog is coming out. And you'll get notice when we post things on our social medias and so forth. We're on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram, at least. I think maybe even a few more.
And the time period is like January to you pick them up in April, right?
Yeah, we're generally starting to take orders in the second week of February. We always do our pickup on the weekend of Earth Day. I recommend order early because we do sell out. I order a certain number, and when they run out, they run out.
We've had that.
And I think Greene County has a really good selection. I mean, I've looked at some of the other counties. I don't know about Eugene. But
Well, you mean the day I picked up in 3 different counties? Mhm.
Yeah. Well, I will say, we do try and keep it native. I have seen things like variegated knotweed for sale in other places, and when I called, they said no, it's a variegated variety. It doesn't have the vigor.
Terrible.
Doesn't have the vigor that the regular one does.
Yeah, right.
Well, I'll believe that, I guess.
Well, now this is a big money maker.
Well, the tree sale, I would say we don't really make any money on it. It's more of a public service that we
So
do.
it's pretty much a cost or close to.
Yeah, we order the trees. We put a little bit of a margin on the trees just to cover our staff time and everything like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not a big money maker. It's more of a get everybody to come together.
That's-
And hey, putting many hands makes light work. And if we can put everyone in the county to work helping get trees planted, what
I
better,
better tell you, the best experience of picking up from the 3 counties was Greene County. All these guys are standing outside a shed. They got their little orange, were they orange shirts?
We've got yellow these
Yellow
yeah,
shirts.
right?
And
The
they're all just
yellow.
hopping around happy as bugs. It was just so much fun.
Yeah.
And I was getting the compost, so they're little slag
and
bags.
it's a great way, if you want to buy inexpensive native trees and shrubs. I mean, I always tell people, if you're looking for something in particular, look at that. And because it's a great way for bare root, it's a lot cheaper than going to a nursery and buying them.
It
right?
really is, yeah. The trees probably don't exceed $2 a piece
Right.
in this, and we sell them in bundles of 10. So for
with
20 bucks.
information.
Yeah, yeah.
And they grow pretty fast. I mean, if you're planting a bare root, it's going to catch up to that potted tree fairly quickly.
I agree. And I've been working with the Catskill Tree Council, and they've really been, in the past at least, going toward these bigger bald and burlap trees or large containerized trees that run hundreds of dollars each, And I said, for that much, we could have planted 100 baby trees. And like you said, they catch up fast. I've planted 3 red buds in my yard April last year, so about a year and a half ago, and they were about 8-10 inches tall, and now they're growing up out of a 4-foot tall tree tube and up over my head
Yay.
in a year and a half.
And sometimes they're healthier than if you're getting some big bald and burlap one, right?
Yeah, I agree. You really can end up with some root bound
Yeah.
problems,
Yeah.
things like that with the more mature trees. And I agree, planting a tree, starting it as a baby right in that ground, best way to start, in my opinion.
Okay, one more a PR thing I want to ask you about is the Streamline newsletter.
Yeah.
That
yep.
is awesome. How often does it come out?
We generally put it out twice a year. I think we do usually a fall and a spring newsletter. We do a lot of posts, though, on Facebook,
Yep.
Instagram. We try and keep up with our Field Day Fridays is one of our regular posts.
Yeah.
We don't hit every Friday, I'll admit, but generally we try and get something out there to show what assessment work we're doing, You saw that the latest one was the moving all the trees to our Red Falls project, which is a water supply funded project that we've been working on for, 4 years now. And we probably have 2 more at least years to go. So quite a project. It's the number one turbidity producer in the Schoharie Basin. But we do try and keep trees moving out the door. One of your questions on the sheet was the numbers. Generally, the tree sale itself, we sell over 4,000 trees per year.
Wow.
And then as far as our order there, we put about 3,000 trees into our plant material center to be potted up and planted out on our restoration projects and buffer plantings.
So you put your order in for yourselves as well when you do the big order.
That's right.
That must be so much fun.
Yeah, and it's a big potting up party every April where we get all those bare roots in, and we sort of do all hands on deck and get some pizzas and stuff for a few days and
need volunteers.
Hang out up at the plant material center anytime. Yeah, there's lots of pot weeding to do too. We got to weed the pots on all these plants. So anytime you want to spend a day up in Maple Crest and weed some pots,
that's lovely.
More than welcome.
And
it really is.
That's what I really like about the bare root sale is that, like, if you live in a town and your town wants to, like, have people plant trees, they can go and buy, 20, 100 bare root plants and just hand them out to townspeople. I mean, it's one of those things that you can do very easily in terms of making sure that people are planting trees.
Do you see that where municipalities are participating?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I say, I work with the Catskill Tree Council. I'm from Catskill.
Okay.
And for Arbor Day each year, we'll do a program at the high school. Usually we're planting a tree, like a bigger tree on the campus. And this past Arbor Day, we brought about 50 potted up. They were bare roots. We put them in pots, 50 trees and shrubs of different varieties to hand out to anyone that wanted one.
Right.
Oh, that is so cool. Okay, I think we're closing in time-wise on Tim's big question.
We always ask people who come on the podcast, kind of tell us what gives you hope in kind of this kind of rife with conflict world and invasives and Japanese knotweed and things like that, all these horrible things that keep us all up at night. Tell us what gives you hope.
I would say that in this business that I work in, all the people I work with are there by choice. We aren't there because we need some kind of a job to do something. These are people that are there intentionally. We're all out there doing work that we may never see mature. We're planting trees that may be 20, 30 years before it's really a full-grown tree. And that kind of thing where people are out there doing good work for benefits that may not be their own, that's the kind of thing that gives me hope.
That's great.
That is hope personified.
Oh, that's great.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. We learned a lot.
I'm so pleased to have been invited, and I look forward to listening to some of your podcasts as I go through your website there. So thanks for having me.
Thank you. We learned so much because all we knew was the plant sale.
Yeah. Well, we are up to quite a bit more. And how we plant a lot of trees as well as sell trees. So
can you let us know when you need us to come help you choose what you're ordering?
Yeah, but right now is the time. I'm about to put the order in the next 2 weeks or so. Is there anything specific on your wish list? Let me know.
All right. You so much. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much.
That concludes another episode of Nature Calls, Conversations from the Hudson Valley. We would like to thank Xandra Powers and Devin Connolly from the Cornell Cooperative Extension of Columbia and Greene Counties for production support. And a special thanks to our listeners for joining us on this episode of Nature Calls, Conversations from the Hudson Valley. You can find links to any of the topics mentioned in this episode at our website at ccecolumbiagreene.org. Comments and suggestions for future topics may be directed to us at columbiagreenemgv@cornell.edu or on the CCE Master Gardener Volunteers of Columbia and Greene Facebook page. For more information about CCE of Columbia and Greene, visit our website or visit in person during business hours at our campuses in Hudson or Acra. Cornell Cooperative Extension provides equal programming and educational opportunities.